probably a 1/32 thick sheet of birch ply cut to the actual door opening configuration. And remember we talked about that when the doors are closed. They're going to be in roughly this position. So when I put that sleeve on here, that fairing on here, that birch ply, it's going to be oversized, probably come up here beyond this edge out to about here, maybe 1/4 of an inch when I cut it, and it'll come all the way to this outer edge here, and then again 1/4 of an inch long down here, and then from that piece I'll be cutting it, tracing the landing gear doors onto it and cutting it to match the contour. So this will be a straight line across here, and I believe, yeah, down along the back edge, straight line down here, and then it cuts over here and then finishes this semicircle here. So I may be cutting into this balsa section here. So I'll need to figure all of that out before I start lining the wheel well. And I also had thought I might just line the top section here and then just use filler and sand these flush and square. And that would allow me, when I go to cut this out, that I won't be, you know, dealing with paper. And also lining the contour curve like that with paper can be tricky. But if I'm just using filler and sanding it to shape, because as I said, that fairing is going to cover, and there'll just be a very thin lip and no way to see, you know, what's happening with this edge. There'll be no way to see that. It just has to fit the wheel in the retraction cycle. So you can see the square is large enough. Now the other thing we notice is that with this angle here and with this wheel well here, we got a bit of an offset, but that's fine because the piano wire is forgiving. You know, a little bit more forgiving probably than the piano wire. But the aluminum is, you know, this whole thing, I probably said that backwards. The piano wire is flexible, but the aluminum is not so much. But we should be able to, as we're retracting this, there's probably going to have to be a little bit of flexing to get it to drop in. But that, again, that's not a bad thing if it's going to help hold the gear up. Again, I don't have the down locks don't work as up locks at this point, so I'm going to be relying on friction fit for the up lock. So we'll see how that kind of progresses. I'm a little concerned about it now because that is kind of a serious offset there. It needed to be closer, you know, to the hole on the center of the wheel as it flipped back. But again, you know, it is what it is, and we're going to do the best we can with what we're working with here. But the offsets on both of these are, you know, they're both offset pretty significantly. This one's probably a little more flexible for whatever reason. So what'll happen now, in order to get the wheel, how do you get this wheel onto that? Well, we'll just bend a 90-degree length of piano wire that'll fit in here, like so. Put the 90-degree bend right at the base of the strut, so this will bend straight over here, and that'll allow the wheel to fit. And then all I have to do is just cut a very small section of the appropriate size, probably this diameter of my aluminum tubing, slide it on before the wheel, and then fill the end of it, the open end of it. I probably don't even have to do that because the door is actually going to cover. Let's see, this is the forward side, so the door going on like this. You know, the door is going to cover that end of this end of the landing gear leg. It just has to look good from underneath and from the front and back. It doesn't have to necessarily look perfect from this side because that's where the landing gear door is. Right? If that makes any lick of sense. But you know, you can see we're coming together. You know, we're getting close to being able to stand the model up, and that, for me, that's a big That's a mile marker for me. Is first is to get it to begin to look like an airplane, and that's kind of when the fuselage is done, like when I can look at it and say I'm almost ready for paint there. That's a mile marker. The other big one for me is getting the wings and tail on, and then the next big deal is standing it up on its own landing gear, not having to use a pedestal or bounce it on a box or something so that I can look at it. It's actually standing on its own gear. So that's a marker. And then after all of that, it's about painting and decaling and clear coating and then final touches. So I mean, this is the hobby, and this is the passion, right? An aviation enthusiast, somebody who appreciates the form, function of of aircraft throughout history, right? Just flying machines in general. I had said initially, like when I was going to do the channel, I was going to be less focused on warbirds and pay more attention to civilian airplanes. And really, for the most part, if you look back at the channel, aside from the two Stearman aircraft, there's not a lot on the channel that's military. The P-40 is probably, the only other warbird that I'd put on the channel. That's not to say I haven't built them. There's an F4 in here, and I had an F-16 at one point and an F-14 Tomcat that were made by an old manufacturer, Today's Hobbies. Had put out these gliders, I guess they were, but they were massive scale. 1/16 scale F-14. You can imagine that's a big airplane. I think there were 1/24 scale. But even so, with an F-14 at 1/24 scale, I think that the thing was about this big. It unfortunately has not survived, and the F-16 kind of went away too, which is a shame. I've been looking ever since for those kits, and they've been out of production for a long time. The Evil Bay had them for a little while. You could find them, but now they're just nearly impossible to find. But I digress. All right, so this is up to speed on the airplane again, working on the landing gear. And the reason I like to keep these removable for as long as possible is because of the amount of detail that I'll be doing here, being able to continue sanding and painting and all that stuff without damaging anything. And just so I could get a look at what we're dealing with here and make sure we're on the right track with regard to the scale excuse me, the size of these landing gear legs. Now the plans called out for this massive diameter, and it just felt wrong. As I said, there's one more size to slip over this finally, and at the end of after everything else is buttoned up, it'll just be one thing. I'll slide those over, and then I'll fabricate the scissor links for the front right here between these 2 points. And the scissor link, let's see, is there a drawing of it so you know what I mean when I say scissor link? It's this little feature here at the front of the landing gear leg that helps the oleo compress, keeps everything straight and square when the oleo is compressing. So this is the shock absorber proper right here, and that's why this still needs a collar. And then from each of those collars will extend out a V-shape scissor link, and it's just like it sounds. It looks like a scissors when it opens and closes when the landing gear is being compressed, and the shock absorber is shock absorbing, as it were. I did add the extra fillet strip here to close this gap on the underside of the wing. The gap between the wing and the flap on both sides is now equal. I'll be doing the same thing on the top, so we'll just close this up just a little bit, and then again, it won't be too much. I still want this reveal here when the flaps are lowered, so that we can at least have the appearance of a Fowler flap, and that's we should end up with that look. And I'll be cutting in the little flap actuator arms that go on the underside of the wing, you know, just to make it look right. All the scale details that still need to be added to try and help, you know, with that, with the look of that feature. So the airplane will stand, the wing, I guess, stand about how high? Let's see. With the wheel attached, it'll be about this far off the deck, right about there. Should be about right for the P-47 in the scale. So I'm getting getting a little excited to see the airplane turn out. I keep trying to visualize, you know, completion, how it's going to look. Thinking about it as I'm going through the assembly, different phases of the assembly, how the gear should look, but overall you want to have in your head a clear picture of how you want the airplane to look when it's done. And that's part of the process that keeps the motivation flying, keeps us going on a project, especially one of this. Well, for me, I mean, there's quite a bit going into this. It's not a small kit by any means, and with the extra size is the extra ability or availability of detail that can either, you know, make it enhance the model, or we can embarrass ourselves, step on a rake. And I'm hoping to do more of the inspiration and the positive aspect of it with the enhancements that I'm doing. Anyway, thanks for viewing. Have a great day. Talk to you later.